when you move from another country, it's always like there's a big level of uncertainty around what's going to happen.
We planted that seed with you into the States saying, okay, this is going to be the person that helps carry the legacy after, I can no longer do it.
That mindset has helped me in a lot of ways become the man that I am today. I think I was more motivated, more than scared when I was coming here, because I felt like I had to prove a point. I couldn't move here and my life remained the same. I couldn't move out here, leave my family behind, and just come here and just be mediocre. There's a when you move from another country, it's always like there's a big level of uncertainty around what's gonna happen.
I come in here, it looks professional. Tune into the content.
Welcome back, everybody, with another episode of Direct Discussions. We are in continuation with our Dallas Up Next series involving Josh Pather. We've also had Kirsten Shelby on here, and now we get to bring on our very special guest, certified wine sommelier, tech company owner. Yes, West Virginia born, Nigerian raised, wine with Toks, everybody.
Let's go.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you for coming over here, man.
Thanks for having me, fellas. This is nice.
Thanks for giving us your time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Let's get into it, man. Let's get into it. Let's talk about wine. Let's talk about
We're going to start with wine? Okay. Let's do it. Might as well take a sip to this.
Bro.
Cheers, guys.
About all this.
So whenever you're cheersing, you can tap it, right?
Yeah, you can, of course.
Yeah, put us on the etiquette, bro. Put us on the etiquette. Because I don't even know. I don't even drink water.
Let me read.
So I always tell people, like, when it comes to like wine, assessing wine, think about 5 S's. You see the wine, you swirl the wine, you smell the wine, you sip the wine, and then you store it.
And see if you like it or not. This is good.
This is good. What's the profile of this wine? Do I like it? Is this something I'll recommend to someone else? And, so 5 S's. It's easy.
5 S's. That is So what did you call it again at the beginning? What is it called?
Let's go to sommelier.
Sommelier. Okay.
Yeah.
Sommelier. See, okay, now tell me what a sommelier is, like the definition, or your definition of a sommelier.
So a sommelier is a wine professional who has expertise around winemaking, wine profiling, wine pairing, and also the services side of the wine industry. So you can learn a lot about wine without learning the services side. You can learn the services side, but not go in depth into winemaking. So there are different bodies that sort of, if you want to take like the real core winemaking, wine assessment, wine profiling certifications, you go the WSET route. If you want to do the service side, then you go the Quartermaster Sommeliers, CMS route. So they have different certifications. So you start off learning about wine, profiling wine, the regions of wine, taste of wine, how to taste wine, how to assess wine. And then you go into the services side where part of your certification, your exam is you would actually serve the wine. So how you serve the wine, how did you hold the bottle? How did you hold the glass? Was the glass squeaky clean? How do you talk to the person about the wine before even serving them the wine? Did you even ask, kind of questions you need to ask, all that kind of stuff. So a sommelier is someone that understands the combination of the world of wine.
So if from my understanding, I'm pretty sure there's more than just what I'm about to say, but from my understanding, there's 3 wines, right? Red wine, white wine, and then Chardonnay.
So you can say red wine, white wine, and sparkling wine.
Okay, sparkling.
So most people will call it champagne because champagne is arguably the most popular sparkling wine. But you have Prosecco, you have Cava, you have different wines in different regions that fall under sparkling wine. So
do you love all 3 of those, or what's your preference?
Man. So I always say I love all wine because my mood and food determines my wine. Yeah. My mood and food determines the wine I drink. So if I'm in a certain mood, then I want something maybe high ABV, like high alcohol content, And if I'm in another type of mood, I want sparkling wine, celebratory type of environment, you go for sparkling wine. If you want to eat, you're thinking about the pairing of the wine with your food. That determines your choice, So I love almost every type of wine.
So let me ask you this. So what makes dry flavored wine so attractive to people? Because I mean, you think about it this way. Everybody, people have their preferences in alcohol. They got brandy, whiskey, liquor, all this stuff. And it all has those different notes and all that stuff. But, most of the time someone's like, oh, we got to mix it with something to make it sweeter, to make it easier to drink. So what makes, dry wine so attractive to people?
I think most people who love dry wine, there's this notion that it has less sugar. That's one of the very popular things I hear. Like some people actually pick their choice of wine because like, oh, this wine is not that sweet, so it must have less sugar, and I'm going to take that. But in the real experience of wine, the drier wines tend to be more flavorful with a larger variety of like food. Like you're eating something, a sweet wine can easily mask the savory nature of the food and all that kind of stuff. And so I think most people, because you go out, you eat your seafood, your steak, all those type of wines, they're dry wine, either red for like steak and all that, white for some other type of food. It pairs well with the food. So I think people just gravitate towards those when they're eating and stuff. And uniquely, sweeter wines are better with like very spicy food. Like your like Thai food.
Well, that
really
makes sense too, food. Because you want to kind of cleanse that palate of all that spices and herbs on there. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because I kind of do that too already. Whenever like, with like a real sweet cup of juice and I'm eating some spicy, just all right, it's too much spice. Let me go ahead and drink some juice, get that out of there. That's
some of the pairing nature of like wine with food that you might just see like, oh, it just goes well with this and gravitate towards that, but maybe you don't know exactly the reason. But yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about, dry wine now, sweet wine, all that stuff. But so tell me about an experience you had prior to you being a wine sommelier where it was like, okay, maybe I know what I'm doing right. For example, everybody wants to drive a car, for example, but don't really know how to drive a car at the beginning. So, with your understanding of, wine, and it's crazy because wine is such a niche thing, depending on like your socioeconomical status or certain preferences you have. So, back to the question I had, tell me about a time where you weren't as, intellectually involved in wine, but you knew you had that passion for it.
Okay. I'll tell you about the day I feel like wine got me. I bonded with my aunt when I moved to the US. I stayed with her for a couple of months. One of the things we bonded on was evening we'll sit down, share a glass of wine. So that was how I just started drinking wine. And I noticed that every single bottle had a different taste, but we're classified the same way. So it's like, oh, maybe you're having like a Cabernet and it tasted different. Yesterday's Cabernet tasted different a little bit from today's, but it's still a Cab. And so the unique day I would reference will be, I think it was like around 9:40 p.m. I went on YouTube how to make wine just to see why it tasted different. And that day I got off YouTube around 3 a.m. It was a rabbit hole. Like, I went down that hole. I just kept watching videos, and that was how wine got me. So I wasn't proficient with wine, but that day, the inquisitive nature in me, like naturally, I'm a very inquisitive person. I just started watching videos, got stuck, and boom, here I am.
And so at what age, I'm assuming it's over 21. At
what
age were you sitting down with your aunt and all this happened?
This was about 12 years ago. Okay. So 26.
26.
Yeah.
Okay.
26.
Okay, let's take it back to the beginning a little bit and we'll come back to that real quick. So tell us how your whole scenario real quick. You just told us off camera, but where are you from?
Okay.
And then everything else like that.
Okay. So I was born in a family, Nigerian-based family, father, mother, Nigerian, born in West Virginia, but raised in Nigeria. So Nigeria made me. think I was about 3, 4 years old when we moved back to Nigeria. My dad worked in the petroleum industry. So back at home, Nigeria is known to be a big like crude oil producing country in the world, one of the top ones. And so that skill set was really needed back home. So the government offered a lot of, incentives and things like that for him to come back. Plus it didn't help, it helped him make that decision to go back based off of the incentives and some of his experiences here in college. My dad would be one of the first people to tell you he wouldn't want to leave in America. Like in college, my dad literally had professors who told him like, you're one of my top students, but I can't give you an A. Like, I knew it's really ridiculous. We're talking about like the early 1980s. And so, but there was nothing he could do about it. And so he experienced that. So he wanted to go back home. And so that the government making a pull for him too was just made it easy. No brainer. Yeah.
Perfect time.
Yeah. But I grew up in Nigeria. I went to, I had my first degree, like college-wise in Nigeria, and then decided to move back here to the U.S. In between moving back to Nigeria as a kid and coming back here, I would come once in a while for like coding camps and things like that, of summer holidays. Yeah. But
so when did you move back here and you were like, all right, I'm gonna stay here now in the States?
That was 2013.
2013. How old were you at that?
I was 27.
And when you did it at 27, were you doing it by yourself, or you had like a brother or sister move back with you, or were you all by yourself?
Oh no, I moved by myself. The great thing was my first couple of months, I stayed with my aunt. So it was she was like a cushion, like like a soft landing for me, because at least I had a place to stay. But I moved by myself. Didn't have much, so to speak. My dad had retired then, and he wanted to actually use some of his retirement money to pay for my master's here. But I didn't want him to do that, and so I talked to him about the option of, I can get a student loan, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And so I moved here, started off staying with my aunt. After I moved out, I was fortunate enough, I signed my master's at UT Dallas here. After my first semester, I got a co-op offer by a tech company called Cisco. And so, that was how I started, work life here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you moved back to the States, you moved to Dallas?
I moved to Dallas, yeah.
Because your aunt lived here.
Yeah, my aunt lived here. She was pretty much the only person that I know that lives here. So it was like, okay, I'm going to move to Dallas. How can I make Dallas good for me? And then I looked at colleges here, universities here that offered a good master's program. I had always wanted to work for Cisco. Like, I'm a techie at heart. Like, tech and wine own my heart. It's a battle all the time, So I always wanted to work for Cisco. Even back when I was in Nigeria, I did some research into, I'll tell you about when I first discovered a computer, like what a computer was. My dad bought a computer and the guy came to install it. And while he was installing, I was just a young kid, just watching, like, what is this guy doing? Putting this stuff together. And so he installed the computer and I was like, let me open an email for you. I was like, what email? Like, what's an email? He was talking to my dad, but I was just listening, like, what's an email? And so I asked the guy again, going back to what I said earlier, I'm very inquisitive. So I'm the kid that's always asking questions. I was like, what's an email? I was like, something that you'll be able to chat with anybody anywhere in the world. I'm like, what's that? So he opened an AOL email. Like, if you know AOL back in the, like, way back, opened an email, sent an email to my aunt with my dad's account, and it was like, your aunt would have seen that by now. And I'm like, no way. Yeah. Like, that quick? Like, so in my mind, I was like, what type of wizardry is this? Like, how is this gonna work? And so he told me about, the internet. I didn't get it. I just knew this was some type of wizardry, and I wanted to understand it. There was a little router box that he said, this is the reason, this is what's responsible for the message being able to go over the internet and stuff. And on that router box was the logo of a bridge, which is the logo of Cisco. So at that stage, I knew I wanted to work for the company that produced this wizardry. Like this, I wanted to work for that company. So I went to work for Cisco. So knowing they had a campus here in Dallas was great. Knowing that my aunt was here, they were here, you know.
It was like
and so it just worked out.
So hypothetically, if your aunt lived in, let's just say Florida, New York, you would have moved to either one of those?
I probably would have moved to Florida. Yeah.
That's insane. I always wonder how do people find their way to Texas for one, and then find their way to Dallas. Places. Like, how does it always happen? And it's always something like
there's a when you move from another country, it's always like there's a big level of uncertainty around what's going to happen. And so one of the things that kind of gives your family members the peace of mind is you're going somewhere familiar. So maybe you're going to a place where there's a thriving community from your race or your background there, or you have family members there. So that's you find a lot of people say, hey, I moved here because family, you know, or
so whenever you were coming here, what are a couple things that scared you moving over here to Texas? Like, cause like you said, you're moving by yourself.
Yeah.
You were moving with your aunt, but you're all by yourself theoretically. So what were a couple things that scares you throughout that process?
Leaving my family, for one, was leaving that whole mom and dad, brothers, sisters behind was. Because I'm big on family. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I'm going to a place where I would not be surrounded by family. Oh, crap. You know, that was one thing that scared me. The second thing is my dad's experience in this country. Even though I would visit, I was still sheltered because I stayed with my aunt when I was a teenager. I would visit during summer holidays. I was still sheltered. But now it's like you have to go create a world for yourself out here. And the only person close enough to me that has done that or tried to do that was my dad. And I knew his experience. But I kind of felt like the world was better than what it was back then. But there was still that, okay, I have to be sensitive about that. But more importantly, I think I was more motivated more than scared when I was coming here, because I felt like I had to prove a point. I couldn't move here, and my life remained the same. I couldn't move out here, leave my family behind, and just come here and just be a mediocre. Like, just walk around the streets, get a just regular. So I was very motivated by that. A big part of it was also my desire, telling my dad to, like, I'll get a student loan, I'll do all of that. Africans, based off of how we leave back home, we don't believe in loans, credit, all that stuff. No, when you buy a car, you buy in cash.
Yeah,
when you buy a home.
I wanted to ask him about that too, about the Nigerian culture, because I grew up around Nigerians all the time. I lived in Oak Cliff for a while. It's funny, we used to, like, you know, get rides from a Nigerian family we were close with and all that. So, you know, it's like they came over here, they're doing the same thing. I would see their dad, you know, working over here, making ends meet and talking about, no, I'm going to get my daughters out of here and all that. I checked up on him maybe about 3 years ago. This dude owns like 4 laundromats and all this other stuff. Dude, like, it's crazy. But to touch back on the whole trip from Nigeria coming over here, and you said you had a sense of pride, is that a personal thing or that's more of a cultural thing? Because the way I think about it, it's like we talked with Josh, you know, a few weeks ago, where it's like he came over here with his family and they were like, all right, now we got to pack up our bags, and, you know, they're over here from South Africa, dude. And it's like, okay, now you're over here, have all this access to opportunity everywhere that you didn't have back at home. Now it's up to you to make something out of it. Now it's like, where in your mindset did you go and say, okay, now I'm motivated to do this? Was it because of that fear that you were alone out here? Yeah, you had your aunt, but you were pretty much alone.
Absolutely. I think it's a mixture of pride and upbringing. So my dad is, if there was someone who epitomizes like proud African man, that was my dad. And so family name mattered. Like, this is our family. This is our name. No dirt must be on this family name. Integrity, being principled, discipline, keep your word. If you say it, you must do it. When I was a kid, if you say you want to do something, my dad will make sure you do it. You know, so I was raised that way. So the essence of this is my last name, no dirt on it. The pride of like, okay, I'm a representation of my family. Like, even in talking to my dad when I moved, my dad was literally like, hey, you're a representation of this family wherever you go. So when you have that sense, it kind of guides certain decisions you make or things you decide to do or not do.
Yeah, thinking about that, sense of pride within your last name, it's so refreshing to hear because nowadays, like in 2024 and maybe 10 years ago, nobody takes pride in their last name.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Nobody puts emphasis on the family, unit and all that. Everybody wants to go out there and do their own thing.
Yeah.
And, just growing up here in the States, it's like, that is the one thing I appreciate, if anything else, from all the foreigners that come in.
Yeah.
The Indians that come in, the Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Africans.
Hustle is there.
Yeah. That sense of pride, bro.
Yeah.
That bondness with the family unit. I think we need to just get back to a place where everybody can just take pride in their family and work themselves to build. Because if you think about it, and it's so hard for Americans to see this nowadays, where they just look at their families and they're like, okay, why don't we have anything? But why does this a family from a different country has everything?
It's a different level of hustle. I'll tell you, I'll give you an example, very, very easy example we can all relate to. I had my first degree in computer engineering in Nigeria, in a university in Nigeria. I had my master's here in the US. The level of difficulty is worlds apart. Like the number of hours I had to study, the volume of books I had to study to take an exam, just one class, one course in Nigeria. It's so preparing for one course in Nigeria is like preparing for 5 or 6 here. So college was a breeze for me here. Mm-hmm. And so even though back at home, it's norm, some of those experiences, I believe, for those who allow it, get into them and change and define who they are, when you come to a different part of the world, you find it it's a lot easier. If I hold on to the same principles and grit and hard work and I do the same thing here, it's a breeze. So that's a big part of it.
That whole sentiment honestly sounds like the American dream.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It sounds like exactly that, because for us, since we're born here and we're here, that drive and the I can't even think of
the motivation.
No, it's we can use motivation, but it's another one, where you need to be quick. I can't even think of the word.
Oh, finesse. Let's use finesse.
Okay, well, we could use finesse, but the where you're just trying to be not even quick. I can't even think of it. That drive. Yeah,
urgency.
Urgency. That's what I'm trying to think of. The urgency for us is not there because we're from here. Mm-hmm. And since if we were to go to another country, the urgency would be there because we're yo, I don't know nobody. I got to get out there. I got to start networking. I got to do this. I got to do that. And the urgency's there. You hit the ground running, wanting to figure everything out. But since we're from here, the American dream is it's like you said, we're just from here. So we're this is nothing. But for you guys, it's man, this is what I always wanted. Freedom.
This opportunity.
Life, everything. And then having that discipline over there and then coming over here where it's a lot more lenient. Yeah. Man, you're bounds ahead of everybody around you. You're just on a whole nother level. Like you said, you're just ready to go. That's
a big part.
Amazing. Yeah. I didn't realize it was like that in other places. But I guess that's why America is just so, I guess, I don't want to say talk bad about it because I love America, but it's lenient. I wouldn't even say it's a form of talk bad or down on America or anything like that, because referencing something you said, if Americans go somewhere else, that urgency, that I believe it'll be there too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I believe it's just you being able to get out of your comfort zone and things like that. And that's why for me, I do think that international exposure, that's how you see people who have lived in different parts of the world have a different mindset and orientation about life. I think it does something to your character compared to I've only been here and just been stuck there. That's what's so amazing. Being able to be in touch with other people's cultures is amazing, because then you can just learn a little bit of everybody's culture and just take that, like you said, just take it and hone in on it and make it your own. And just try to take it to the next level with that. I like this. I love how they love their family. I love how their culture is. Just take all
bring it together.
Bring it together and make it the way you want it to be. And that's how we can get back to, like you're saying before, where us as individuals now, we start pushing the next generation to really care about your last name.
Yeah.
You are, whenever you go out and step outside this door, you are a representation of us.
That. Yes.
Us as a family,
Yes.
us together. You are my daughter, you are my son. You are supposed to represent me.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing. So if you're doing bad out there, it's making me look like I didn't do my job.
Yep.
So it all comes back around to the foundation
Yep.
that your father set in your mind at such a young age. Man, that's amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so good. I could honestly say as well that I'm a big family man as well. Like,
Yeah.
family is so important and
That's
big
awesome.
to me. Could you tell me, because we all, like we had talked about this before, but what is your definition of success to you?
Success to me would be freedom, flexibility. So freedom around I can do what I want to do within legal reason, of course.
It's like not having to clock in, clock
Not
out.
having
I have
to,
be there
yeah,
at this
I
time.
have to, if I want to spend the rest of the day with my kids. If I was leaving home, I was about to walk out and my daughter just cried and was like, Daddy, don't go because it's our first day out of school for the summer. I want to be able, you know what? Nah, I'm not. I'll spend time with you. Success to me is that freedom. Success to me is being able to take care of all of my loved ones. I'm big on that. Being able to take care of my family, like my immediate, maybe wife, kids. I'm not married yet, but at that point, that would be a definition of it. My parents. I never had to, I'll tell you, I didn't have all I needed. Sorry, I didn't have all I wanted, but I had all I needed. My dad was sole breadwinner of the family. My baby sis is somewhere on the autism spectrum. So because of the whole demand to take care of her, my mom had to quit her job to be able to take care of her and provide that attention and care for her. So I'm 37 now. Since I was like 4 years old, 5, my dad had been the breadwinner of the family. Sole provider, taking care of everybody. And so now that I'm able to work, now that I'm earning money and things like that, I want them to be my baby. Like they're my kids now. So I take care of them. I give them a fixed allowance every month.
So do you feel like, because you were put in a position over here, thankfully for your parents? Because I mean, think about it. Yeah, they had you over here in the States.
Yep.
But it would have been so much harder to come over here into the States, considering the fact that you would have to, go through visas, immigration, and all that. Because he planted that seed, which, I mean, it sounds kind of strange to call you a seed, but he did.
I am actually. I started off as one.
Yeah, he planted that seed in you, knowing that, he's that example. And it's crazy because today, guys, if you guys aren't, this coming out in July, but we're recording on Father's Day. So,
Yeah.
if anyone else sees this, big shout out to all the dads out there. But, back to what we were saying, he planted that seed with you into the States saying, okay, this is going to be the person that helps carry the legacy after, I can no longer do it as I retire. So, you're in that mindset where you're just like, okay, it is up to me to carry my family's name on my back. How does that make you feel as an individual? And do you feel like, when you get into a position, when you have kids, it's going to be a lot easier for them to implement those same mentalities that your dad implemented on you? Or do you think it's going to be a little harder with the differences in times and changes that we got going on in the future?
Yeah. I hope I'm able to do a good enough job as a father to plant that seed in them, that mindset, because I'll tell you that mindset has helped me in a lot of ways become the man that I am today. It's the essence of, I'm a representation of my family. I'm going to take care of my parents. All that is a big motivation for me not to just settle for, hey, I'm doing this job. I'm making $100K a year. I'm good. No, I'm not good because I have to make sure everybody is good. And that motivation, so you're not settling for less. It's more of a motivation. Some people think it might be pressure, but the same thing some people call pressure is motivation for another person. It's just the mindset, how you see it. Never seen it as a problem, never seen it as pressure, always seen it as motivation. So if I'm able to find a way to do it for my kids, the same thing, put that mindset in them, whew, I'll be a lucky man if I can do it. I hope I'm able to do it because my dad did it. He did it well. And I'll be honest with you, it's a big part of who I am today.
Yeah. It sounds like, if you were to be put in a position like that with your dad, you'd have some pretty big shoes to fill.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was telling a couple of friends a while back, it's been a minute ago, I was telling some of my friends that if I was like 70% of the man my dad is, my woman is going to be a lucky one. Like, my wife is going to be, because my dad is the most responsible man on earth that I know. Like, when you talk about that picture of this, a responsible man, it's my dad.
So let me ask you another question. You're comparing yourself to your dad, but and we asked another guy this too. I'm like, I like to compare myself at whatever age I am to my parents when they were that age.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel like you stack up with your dad? At the age of 37 when he was 37.
Oh, he actually said something about this a couple of months ago. I was like, man, you are far ahead of me. Yeah. At 36 was when my dad moved to the US to do his master's when they had me. So my dad was still in college when he was my age. So we're worlds apart when it comes to achievement, things like that, either from a career perspective, financial perspective. Oh yeah, it's different. Very different. Very, very different.
I feel like that's how it should be though.
Mm-hmm.
We should, like, I'm just throwing out numbers to make it easy, but if your grandfather was able to get to a level 4, hopefully your dad gets to a level 7. And then hopefully you get to a level 10. And then hopefully your son or daughter gets to a level 12, 13. And just so on and so forth. Everybody should just get bigger and better than the previous person. Like, I literally told my son, I tell him this all the time. I'm like, he's like, Dad, I want to be just like you. I'm like, no, buddy. I want you to be better than me. You gotta be better than me. And it's just trying to instill those little principles of making his bed every morning. All the little details that once he gets older, he'll be like, dang, I didn't even realize you taught me all this. And it's just so second nature. It's so second nature. And it's such a proud moment. That's what I hope is that
that's awesome.
He becomes better than me. I'm better than my dad. My dad's better than his dad, and so on and so forth. That's what we should all want for
aspire.
ourselves.
Yep,
We should want them to be better than us, no matter what we're doing. Like you said, Roger said, you have some big shoes to fill.
Oh yeah.
So then, it's like you said, maybe you're doing better than him career wise, but like you said, when it comes to him as a man, maybe I'm not saying you're not there yet, but maybe you just haven't got to his level yet. And that's where you're like, man, the motivation's there for me to get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it won't happen until you have kids, because that's when you're like, oh man, now it's time for me to lock in and
become a different version of myself. Tap into that father. Absolutely right. I believe in that. Absolutely. I think that's important to not judge yourself. Like, I don't really compare myself to a lot of people or him, or like, hey, I want to be, as long as you're a better version of yourself, because different phases in life will bring out different versions of you. My brother-in-law told me, like, I feel like I learned how to love your sister more when I watched her have my baby. He was like, I love this woman to death, but just the experience of actually being there when she had our first child, I left that hospital like loving her on a level that I didn't even know existed and stuff. Yeah, maybe it's a mixture of that appreciation with what was on ground. So I do believe like life has a way of like taking you up the next notch, the next notch, the next notch. And so yeah, baby fatherhood is gonna bring out another level out of me.
And for me, whenever I had my son, it was like, okay, now I gotta turn it up. There's no more screwing around.
Yeah.
No more doing this. No more doing that. I gotta lock in.
Yeah.
So for you in your life, when do you feel like you took a big growth? And maybe was it when you came to the States, or was it years later? Or when do you feel like you hit one of your biggest growth spurts? You're like, man, I'm so.
Or was it after you got your master's, started getting into tech sales? Because you are a co-owner of a tech company. So I want to get into that as well too, and see how all of this early mindset also implemented into that?
Yeah. So I think my biggest growth spark, like I've had growth sparks at different phases of my life. Moving was one of it. Landing my dream job with a company called Cisco was one of it. I think the biggest spark was when I started my own like tech consulting company, and just watching how much happened within the first couple of months was like a wow type of thing for me. Like, I'll be honest with you, it was out of this world. Like, I couldn't, you know how sometimes you don't even dare to dream about certain things happening so quick because you're like, I don't see how it's gonna happen. So it's too much to dream for, you know. The speed to which I believe like God placed some opportunities in my way, and I was ready for them at that time. And so when they started to materialize, it was shocking for me. I'll tell you, I went from, I don't really like to talk about like money, like numbers and things like that, but it was really, really significant. It was a complete like lifestyle change. It was a complete change for even my family. Just that impact. So I think the biggest thing was when I bet, to answer your question, when I bet on myself to start my own business. So I used to do sales for a tech consulting company. I was in tech sales. I was one of the regional tech sales guys, and I had a lot of high profile commercial and enterprise accounts that I was in charge of, like creating like 3-year roadmaps on how they can stay competitive in the industry, from a data center, collaboration, cybersecurity, all that kind of good stuff. I'll create that roadmap for them, and we'll sell that solution and outcome to them. And at the end of the last year that I did that, I looked at the amount of the dollar value of deals I closed for that company. Yeah. And I said, if I do 3% of this for myself, I'm set. Like good. I'm way beyond. I'm leaving my like
generational wealth.
Like I'm there. You know, if I can just close 3% of the value of the deals that I closed that year for the company. And so I bet on myself. So my biggest growth spark was when I chose to bet on myself and start my own company.
So when you were going through that period, were you reading any like books, watching any movies that got you just wanting to, like you said, you seen that 3%, you were like, if I could just do this. Was there anything that like pushed you to do that?
I think it was the thought of I can scale working a 9 to 5. I can't make as much as I want to or desire, or as much as I think I'm cognitively capable of doing. Like a lot of us, when you think about your mental capacity, what you can mentally do is way beyond what you do 9 to 5. And so how much of that can you turn into a product or service, whatever, to drive that? So I can scale doing a 9 to 5. I can make the kind of money I wanted to make doing a 9 to 5. But I needed that 9 to 5 to get that skill, to be able to do it for myself. And that's where I think a lot of people miss it. You want to do this, you want to start this business, you want to do this job, you want to own your own business, you need to acquire this skill. And sometimes it takes you doing the 9 to 5 to get the skill before you actually go start your own job. Now you had the skill, probably had some connections, known some of the ups and downs of that particular industry. It's just like people who say they want to make passive income. Oh, I want to make passive income. You got to start with making active income first. You have to, it's the active income that fuels whatever that is. So it's a lot of people get it, mixed up. But I do think my 9 to 5 equipped me to be able to do. It was time.
So, okay. So we're talking about, working a 9 to 5 to get the skills, correct?
Yeah.
So after that, it's like, okay, cool, you get the skills, but a lot of people, main excuses like, man, I can't afford to quit my job. Like my bill is this, my bills are, working paycheck to paycheck. There's that other factor where it's like, well, yes, you bet on yourself, but how long were you able to buy time with, money accumulated to like afford to bet on yourself before it was like, damn, I got to go back to work because this money is drying up. It's not planning out as I thought it would, Because Because that's honestly, whenever somebody says that they're gonna bet on themselves and then they go back to the job that they wanted to,
that's most of the time what happened.
Yeah. So, real quick, how did that experience go for you? What did you do to put yourself in a position where you betted on yourself and was able to make it out the other side?
Okay. Great question. I think it varies depending on the industry you're in. Some type of jobs or industry you work in, it's easy to find clients. For some, it's not easy to find clients. If it's easy to find clients, then it's probably a little bit more comfortable for you to say, yeah, I'm going to bet on myself with less cushion. For me, I've always been big on saving. And so I had a sizable enough saving that I knew, okay, for about a year, if I didn't make any income, I'm going to be pissed. But but my bills are gonna be paid. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be pissed, but my bills are gonna be paid. I didn't have so much like debt, which was good. I planned for that. I planned not to have that debt. But a lot of people, I would say, have some type of cushion. But most people, I honestly believe, don't have that or can't afford to have that. Maybe you're working a job, you're making 30,000, 40,000 a year, and someone is telling you, hey, have some savings or cushion. It's not going to make any fucking sense to you. You understand what I mean? Like, for people like that, and for everybody in general, I believe there's always a way. One of the big ways is time. We have time. We all have the same amount of time. We might not have the same amount of money, but we have the same amount of time. You work your 9 to 5, there's a whole nother world between 5 to the next 9. Starts. So what you do between that time matters a lot. And so I think everybody has the capacity situation, except you have some type of like medical ailment or disability or something like that. But if you don't have that, you have enough time after your 9 to 5 to get some work done, to start that business, to do it. It might be slower, but you can start it. And it starts ramping up. Some people, it's just building pipeline of customers. That's what you can do. Like just putting the word out there. And then when you actually get your first deal or your first big deal, you might be able to do it while you're doing your 9 to 5. You do it. And you might find out, you know what, I can actually do both together. I don't have to quit this yet. Till maybe now the money is not, the balance of time in your 9 to 5 and the money is not making sense. Then you can be like, you want to quit it. So I do believe there's a way. For me, I had the savings and I started working on the business before I actually left my 9 to 5.
So a lot of people have a hard time saving money. So, where did, you get that ability to save money? Because, yes, financial literacy is one thing, but, speaking to you and hearing you saying, okay, I'm saving money, I'm living frugally, who implanted those elements inside of you? Was it your dad again? Or was it, just realizing you're out here by yourself?
I think my background, my dad is a zero debt guy. Everything he bought with cash. And so seeing him be that way, that was optimal for Nigeria. Here in the US, it's a different world. Yeah. If you really want to be smart with money, there's something called good debt. You can involve yourself in that. But the mindset of the savings started from back at home, my upbringing, my parents, both parents, mom and dad. I think he elevated a little bit when I got here and I started off here broke. Back at home, I was comfortable enough. Like we're never rich or anything like that, but we're okay, we're comfortable. But when I came here to the US, I started from broke. And so I always tell people, if you've ever been poor before, or you've ever had some money and you went down to broke or zero, when you come back up, you better remember that fucking feeling. And that feeling is what led me to be like, I'm going to save money. So no matter what happens to me in life, I lose my job, I have to go back to Nigeria. Whatever happens, I'm not going to start from broke. I'm not going to start from zero. And so it's preparing for those rainy days. And no matter how little you can save, you can save. A big part of what also helped me was while I was working my 9 to 5, the company I was working for gave the flexibility to, do this multi-account direct deposit. A lot of companies actually do it. For you to get your salary, your biweekly salary, you can set up 90% in this bank account 10% in this bank account.
That is so true.
A lot of people don't know that, but most companies do it. Yeah.
That is so true because I actually do that. That's something I practice because they give us the option to do that. And, you know, it's funny because like the card that I had for that savings account, bro, it expired like 3 years ago.
Yeah, you didn't even notice. Exactly.
Yeah. I just, you know, I just never decided to renew it because I know the money that's there, the account is active. It's like, I'll just leave it in there and don't touch it.
That's a way to help. That helped me because now I got the card for that account, and as soon as I got the card, bro, it scissors out and ripped it.
Mm-hmm. So you can't even.
So I can't even go, and if I want to go take money in that account, I have to go into the bank. Mm-hmm. And for me to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to the bank. While I'm thinking about taking that money, my mind is reminding me why I saved that money. Yeah. So don't touch it. It's like, okay, all right, let's see what we have here. We're gonna make this work. Mm-hmm. You know.
I think the cool thing about that too is that once they take that 10% out, it's like you didn't even have it.
Yep.
And if you did, and if you never had it, you never are gonna spend it. You're like, oh, I don't even have that.
Yeah, it helps. You can tweak certain things about your mindset. You can help yourself be better up here. You know, and so that helped me with saving. So I think a lot of people can benefit from that particular pattern. Like, just don't even let the money hit the account yet. Mm-hmm. We're all the most disciplined human being on earth still has moments where they didn't live up to that. Yeah. We all have moments of weakness. We all have moments we feel like want to splurge on something. So help yourself by limiting your access to that savings.
To certain funds you carry.
Like you have to jump through hoops to get there. While you're jumping, you remember like, I didn't want to spend that money, and then you go back.
There you go. What I took from your whole sentiment there was a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I tell people this all the time. I'm like, yo, I know you want to move out. I know you want to have your own space. I know you want to be comfortable. But just stay at your parents' house. Stack up 30, 40, 50K.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're at your parents' house, you theoretically, maybe you're paying rent. Maybe if you're not, that's even more reason for you to save up and everything like that. And I know the biggest part of that is sacrificing. And majority of the time, people are like, "Oh, you don't know my situation. You don't know what I have to go through. This and that." I'm like, man, just sacrifice. I know it's not good. Just do it for another 2 more years. I know it sounds long, but if you do it for 2 more years, you'll set yourself up to where you'll never have to go back. But because they're so like, "Oh, I gotta go," I'm like, as soon as you leave, give it a year, maybe 2, you're gonna be right back. Come saying, "Mom, Dad, can I move back in?" And that because you didn't sacrifice enough to make sure that you're not able to go, so you don't ever want to come back.
I think it's a call. Yeah, you're right. I think it's a societal thing, especially with like the more westernized countries and things. You hear about people saying, "Hey, your kid is 18. Your child has to leave the house at 18. Your child is an adult at 18. You're not an adult at 18. No. You're really not. Like, you really don't even understand life well enough.
Nope.
This life, and a lot of people leaving too early, leaving home too early, leaving the covering of the voice of your loved ones, of your parents and things like that, leaving too early has set a bad foundation for them to start life. There are people who moved out of their house at 18, 19 and discover, oh shoot, I can get credit cards. Got credit cards, and you just started swiping. And then now you're in debt. You had no financial literacy. You didn't understand money, and probably when you were at home, your parents didn't expose like how the money in the house runs, because they're like, oh yeah, you're a kid, and these are certain things that I see in certain families that I feel lucky because I knew how money was spent when I was a kid. I wanted to buy a belt. I have to make a business case to my dad why I need that belt. And what happened to the so I understood all that street consideration for money. You have to understand why you're spending this money. If not, you shouldn't be spending it. If you can't explain to somebody why you need to spend this money to buy this thing, you shouldn't be doing it. I had that growing up. And so I do feel, and I think a lot of cultures, like especially African cultures, nobody's really pushing you out at 18. Like back at home, you're probably in your early 20s, mid-20s when you're leaving home. So even if you started work, you've been able to stack up, like you said. So you're starting from a good foundation. I think these are some of the things that the more westernized worlds can learn from some other countries, how, just the societal norms and what's normal, what's not.
See, I think I got my first taste of reality of, saying, like we were talking about just now, getting kicked out too early. When I was 17, I was a senior in high school. That second semester, my mom was like, all right, you can either come with me up north to like Louisville, or you can stay here in this apartment and pay rent since you and your sister got a job. And dude, we're like, okay, we'll stay here.
Why?
We'll stay here. Like, I mean, the rent was $600 a month, but we didn't want to finish off the school year halfway through and then move to a different district and all that. And at the time we thought we were just playing. Dude, nah. No.
And life got real quick, huh?
Yeah. She had the U-Haul ready packed. I was like, okay, she's actually going to do this. I mean, I guess we stay here for 6 months, but, learning those principles about, having to work for your own, dude. Like, personally, I got a little bit of that from my dad because when I was a kid, he would take me to go work with him. I was like 7, 8, 9 years old doing remodels in houses. So he, pushed me out there to, come on, I'm going to show you some skills that you can use in the future if you ever need to. As a kid, good. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this shit. But, it's funny because, like, anything that goes wrong in this house, I got it.
You can fix it.
And then, with my mom kicking me out, well, she didn't really kick me out. She just moved out.
Yeah.
She kicked herself.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So when she ended up doing that, it was like, okay, now I got to really know what it's like to, like, work, save money and all that. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was saving money at my first job when I was 17. I was saving money, it's like I was getting paid $7.25. I was like, I gotta put something away. I didn't have any money a month ago, so why do I need all this extra money now? If not just to pay a phone bill and my bus ticket to go to and from work.
Yeah.
So moving forward, as I got older, I was able to get a 1-bedroom apartment. Outside of that, some time has passed. I had a kid. 1-bedroom apartment came in. We lived there for 2 years, dude, before I was able to purchase a house. Nice. But it was because of those principles where it was like, I got thrown into the fire so early, man. Not a lot of 17, 18-year-olds can get thrown into a fire like that and make it out the way I did.
It's a double-edged sword. Like, it's one of those, like, it worked for you. It ruined certain people. Like, it's one of those things, like, and it's probably the early principles imbibed in you by your dad, like working hard, taking you to work, you learning how to save while you were still under them so you could do it outside. Some people don't even get exposed to any of that. And then you go into the real world and then the world is out there just waiting for you, throwing punches at you, all that kind of stuff.
Another thing, since we're talking about Western principles, a lot of people and like, that have families here, for example, I mean, I can speak on the Latino culture for sure, but they're always trying to charge their kids rent. If you get a job, all right, time to start paying rent. Oh, you don't have any money for this, bro. I'm like, dude, I just started working. Like, I'm trying to get something for myself. Like,
barely got orientation last week,
right? Oh, you're right.
And it's crazy because I hate. And okay, it's okay. Two perspectives. Okay, yes, you help out the family by putting money on the table, but you weren't relying on this money before. So it's like, now it's your time to like, let me, do what I got to do so I can make it out of here without having to continue to pay rent to you and still put away money and still take care of my personal needs that you are no longer providing for. It's like, dude, like, America needs to wake up, dude. Like,
the question I'll ask though is, and you guys give me your perspective on it. Honest.
Okay.
If most parents did that, do you think most kids will actually stack up that money or blow that money up?
Honestly, blow it. Because I know quite a few amount of people who still stay with their parents, and I'm like, so what are you trying to do? And they're like, I don't really know. I'm trying to do that. Like, come on, man. So you're just wasting your time at your parents' house. You're not even stacking. You're worried about car debt. I tell, like, my whole biggest thing right now for anybody that is at their parents' house is like, I'm like, yo, check out Dave Ramsey. That's exactly what you need to check out. Pay all your debt off, stack as much money. And then after that, you can start figuring out, okay, do I want to get a house first? Do I want to upgrade the car first? And then once you get the main things, then you can say, okay, I think I'm ready to move out.
To now,
whatever it is. Maybe have $10,000 in your savings account. Already got your new car. All right, cool. Now we can start focusing on the house and everything else that comes with it. But people nowadays are just so. It might be with inflation as well, but then again, I'm just like, I think what really opens and broadens everything is the internet.
Okay.
Because even my parents, they're learning a lot more about the markets, how money works, and everything like that, trust funds, mutual funds, insurance, everything like that, because of the internet. And to me, like, well, I even talked to my grandpa about this. He was like, if you wanted to learn anything back then, you literally had to know somebody, or you went to the library and read. Yeah. And other than that, nobody's just giving that information. Hey, do this. Hey, do that. Hey, do this. So whenever you said your dad was instilling that in you so young, he was putting you light years ahead of everybody around us.
I believe that. I didn't know that was what it was doing, but in hindsight is 2020. You know. So yeah, I see it now.
Now, okay. So in my perspective, you know, I agree with David. Yeah, they might have spent the money, but also too, like, as a parent, I mean, wouldn't you want to save that money for your kid? So if they, you know, were like, dang, I really don't have any money, but you see that they want more for themselves, be like, look, I did you a favor. Now you can go to school for a year, or you want to go to a trade school or something like that. Yeah. Or damn, like, your car really messed up, and you know you're taking care of your car. Just kind of like putting a veil on it. You know, for example, you know, you tell your kid, yeah, you know, I'm not helping you at all, but you're helping them in the back end. It's like,
that is a lot better.
Yeah. Think about it this way. If, you know, for example, let's say if my mom was charging me rent and I had that extra money set aside, maybe by the time I got around in the mindset where, hey, maybe I want to start a business, for example, or maybe I want to, you know, pursue, you know, a different, you know, career or something, I have money to pay for that. Yeah. Because, you know, I mean, having the money is one thing, but once, you know, and you know, like I said, it comes and goes differently for people. But if you end up finding yourself in that mindset where you want to improve, and I mean, you got to go through some things to get the mindset to begin with. Yeah. But, you know, once you get that mindset, it's like, okay, I'm stuck in this mindset. Yeah, I can work a lot harder for it because I don't have the money to back it up. Or it could have been like a moment where I could have been grateful for my parents for giving me, doing that. Like, look, I saw something in you when you were 19. Now you're 24, for example. Okay, so I put this money away for this long. Now that you know what you want to do, I want you to use this money that I put away for you so that you can pursue that. Do this. Yeah,
I like that. That's actually a really good idea. I was just thinking that same thing where I feel like there's some parents that are like that, what you just said, where, hey, we're going to charge you $300 in rent every single month. Boom. 2 years passes by. Hey, that $300 you were giving me every month, I set it aside for you. So I didn't even use it for the rent. I literally set it aside for you just to see if you would keep up with making sure all the payments were paid every single month to me. I know like 2 people's parents that did that for them.
Wow,
like, that's
really honorable. Cool. Yeah.
Now, most the one biggest takeaway about that is that, I mean, yeah, you're saving your kids money, but you're also teaching your kids, you know, work principles, ethic, responsibility. Like, you know, this money is due now, so you're gonna have to pay it. And then in your head, you're just like, okay, I have obligations to make. At the end of the day, whatever you owe is an obligation. Yeah. And if you can keep up with those obligations, you know, you're gonna put yourself in a completely different position where you're like, okay, no, I was just paying rent, whatever. No, it's more than that. You're making obligations. You're gaining the ability to understand responsibility. And when you have responsibility, you have pride. Yeah. And because you are responsible enough to take care of those obligations, and you know, it's just a big old circle. Yeah. So what are your thoughts? How do you
I agree with that. Honestly, from this conversation you guys are having, I just had an idea of something I'll do with my kids.
I was just about to ask that. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Like, that's,
but here, let me ask you this. Let's hypothetically say, well, not even hypothetically. I want to know. Let's say, because you're not married, right?
No, not yet.
And you don't have kids.
No. Okay. So if I was in that scenario where you talked about with your kids starting a new job, you know, earning money, I think it's a brilliant idea to actually do what you said. Get the money, have them be responsible for something that is not going to be a burden to them. Whatever you want them to do, it's not going to be a burden to them. Something good enough. You know, set it aside for them. I think eventually it's teaching them the principle of being responsible very early in life. If they flop, you're able to go at that, behavior, talk to them, sit them down, talk to them about it. Hey, you're not supposed, life is not going to give you an option. If your rent is due, your landlord is not going to give you an option. So, what are we going to do about this? Okay, so next month you're paying double.
Yeah.
You're able to teach them life lessons, and then you're also keeping the money aside because one, you're probably positioned to not need that money.
Yeah.
And then you can keep it aside and be like, okay, all this while I was training you how to be this. You did an amazing job, son. Here you go. Or you did an amazing job, daughter. Here you go. Here's the money. You've saved up this money to buy this. Oh, you want to buy that house? Okay, here. I think it's a really nice thing to do. Yeah. I never thought about that, but from this conversation, I think
the one biggest takeaway from this, we're all talking about saving money like this. We're not gonna include your parent in this situation because your dad was a completely different man from what we're hearing.
Oh yeah.
But most parents nowadays, they're in their 40s. Like for our age group, they're in their 40s, so they're a completely different generation, a different mindset.
Yeah.
But I also take a lot of pride knowing that because we have so much access to all this information and be able to talk to people it was a lot harder to talk to people back in the day because you didn't have internet.
Yeah.
And then, along with that, you get to share those ideas with other individuals that you didn't get to talk to if you were maybe 20, 30 years in the past. With that being said, though, you're able to say, okay, look, I got an idea. This is what we should do. Okay, so let's implement A, B, C in our kids since, okay, perfect example. He lives 30 miles away, right?
Yeah.
I would have never talked to him if we didn't grow up in the same neighborhood. No. Never. But because of the position that we're put in now, it's like, okay, now David has access to financial literacy. You have financial literacy. I have access to financial literacy. So we can all get together and share those ideas. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that about the time that we're
live in now. Yeah.
And then the access of information that we have to. And then just that mindset for us where it's like, okay, now we can share, different parenting styles that our parents had that didn't work out for us to elevate us
how we do
community.
It. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to what you were saying, like things are supposed to get better. Earlier when you said it. Yeah, we're supposed to peak what worked in that past generation, find out how to implement in this generation, and what didn't work, we elevate on that, figure out how it's supposed to work and then bring that added. So this generation is supposed to be better than the last, that's naturally what you will hope for, but it's not always that linear.
So I wanted to ask, what was your ideal scenario for your life to pan out theoretically? Because we all have an idea like, oh, I want to get married at this point, have a girlfriend at this point, have kids, get the house.
Oh, my life, it didn't pan out. I've changed that idea tons of times my whole life. It's life almost never pans out the way you want it, especially the when you want it. What you want, you might eventually get it, but most of the time it's not when. If it panned out the way it should have, I probably have like 3 kids now already. I'd be done with kids, but it didn't. But to me, I think at this point in my life, what matters is starting my family, giving my family options. I want my kids to have options. So if they want to learn a different language or want to go to France for a year to do some education, whatever thing they can go do it, get exposed to another world. I want my wife to have the option of like, man, maybe she's working at 9 to 5. My boss is stressing me. I'm like, babe, you can quit that job. You don't need to deal with the stress. I want my family to have that option. I want my family to grow up with some of the very traditional mindsets that I saw in my parents and that worked for me as a child. And so I'm likely going to be a hybrid of someone who's that old school African man, but also the new age tech, modern dad, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm likely going to be a hybrid. Yeah, I'm likely going to be a hybrid as a husband and as a father. And so, and I think it's a good combo. So if I would think of my life panning out, it will revolve around convenience for my loved ones, freedom for my loved ones. And hopefully, man, I pray I'm blessed with good kids. Yeah. I'm going to try my best, but I don't know I see some kids, I see some stuff going on around this world now. It's like, oh my God, like you get scared. I'm like, oh my, you know, I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying. Like,
that's why I wanted to ask you that. I wanted to see, how did you do it whenever you were getting with your girlfriend? How did it work? Did y'all have those conversations? Hey, I want to eventually have 2 kids, 5 kids. Where are we going to potentially live? Do we want to move somewhere else? Did you have those harder conversations at the beginning, or was it later on in the relationship? How did it all evolve for you?
Oh, I do believe it's important to have those very early, those kind of conversations very early. It's part of things you have to align on. You know, like a family, a household is supposed to be like one front, a family, husband and wife, one. I never saw my mom and dad. I knew moments where they had difference of opinions, but when they came out of that room, they came out with one voice. This is what you're gonna do, or this is what we're gonna do, and that was it. You know, it wasn't a thing of like, oh, mom wants to do it this way, dad wants you to do. They figured it out and came out with one voice.
I'll tell you how they figured it out. Your dad just like, okay, we'll do whatever you want.
Happy wife.
Right? So, yeah, I think it's important to have those conversations early. Family dynamics, as much as you can, even down to where you want to raise your family. Even down to, are you open to having like nannies or not? Are you open to taking your child to daycare or not?
Where was it for you?
Yeah, I don't think there was one particular thing, like, or one moment that was like, okay, this is the moment. I don't think so. I think it's the conversation we just had. When you start to have conversations about these kind of things, and you see how aligned you are, and you start to see maybe you disagree on stuff. How do you disagree on stuff? Okay, how is this person when they don't actually have their way? Yeah. Because that happy wife, happy life thing is not real.
No.
Yeah, I don't believe it's real. I don't believe and so because the man cannot be happy if all you do is yes to the woman. The woman cannot be happy if all she does is yes to the man. Yeah. You know, so you will find moments where one person's not having their way. I'm not having my way maybe today, or she's not having her way. How does she handle that? And I'm probably being profiled too. Like, when I don't have my way, how am I handling that? So I think it's a combination of all those things. It just starts to become real and real and real to you. And I think those are things that make people like different, special to you, aligns them with you compared to maybe other people that you've met or you've been with or whatever. So I don't think there was one moment for me. I don't disapprove of people who have moments like that one moment. Not that I don't agree with it, but for me, I don't think it was one moment. And then I'm too serious up here about stuff like that. Yeah. So I'm looking at so many things. Like, one thing is not going to convince me about. So I think it's a combination of all of that.
It was just like green flag. Oh, you said this?
It's like that
green flag.
I see a lot of greens. Green yeah. Okay. And much more, it's you did this. You responded this way. Not even what you say, because anybody can say anything. Yeah. Anybody can, but who you are, the person, who you are to other people. I think most of us have seen situations where people are good to us, or we think they are our friends, but they're messy or shitty people to some other people. Yeah. And then eventually they end up doing that same thing to you. And they're like, oh, it was just your turn. Yeah, actually the same come, because that's how. So I also look at how people treat other people. Yeah. Because one day you treat me like that. One day it's going to happen. So how are you with strangers? How are you with, that kind of stuff,
That's actually good. I literally seen this thing on Facebook yesterday where this guy comes up to his dad. He's like, Dad, I want to take this girl on a date. Can I borrow your car? He's like, all right, you can take this girl out. He goes, you got to dress nice. Open that door for her. be nice to the waiter, tip the waiter, all the things. He said, when you're in the car driving back home, don't touch her unless she's okay with you touching her. She puts her hand there, or whatever it is. Telling him all these things that actually goes hand in hand with what you said. It's the green flags. Let me see how he is to the waiter. Let me see how he treats me on our first date. Is he just trying to get in my pants? Whatever it is, let me see your actions, because you could tell me anything you want to tell me, but let me see how you actually treat me and treat the other people when we go out to eat. Are you helping the elder lady with her groceries to the car? Whatever it is. Are you doing the little things where I can say,
this is a good human being?
I can see myself with this person. Like, this all makes sense. It all aligns. Like you said, it all lines up. Yep,
absolutely. I've cut off a first date because of how the person spoke to the waitress.
Wow.
It was so, oh my God. And I was just like, can I get it to go, boss?
Already?
It was so
how did she do it? Was it like they were just taking too long and she was like, hello?
It was, so first of all, we could see the restaurant was like it was a full night. You know, kind of thing. And so the waitress kept coming back, trying like, okay, have you guys made a choice of your drink, or, you know, that kind of stuff. Like, oh, give us some time. We're just talking. Again, this first time we're seeing each other. So we get caught up in the conversation of like, okay, how are you? Hey, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. So, she comes back again the second time, you know, we've not even looked at it. My bad. I'm sorry. You know, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then the third time, before she came, she was already throwing a tantrum. Like, where's this girl? She's not even, we've been here for like, and I'm like, you know, like she came like, you know, like it's in my mind, it's our fault. Like we didn't make the choice. You know what I'm saying?
She was coming on.
And
like
so
twice.
when the girl came, I was like, hey, are you guys ready for, you know, that kind of, she spent like the first 1 minute telling the girl about why she didn't come back early enough. We told you give us this number of minutes and whatever, blah, blah, blah. We've been sitting down here and I just wanted to be like, you know who would have ordered this in the time you're talking and doing. So she said all of that. And she also, the waitress was also stressed with work, you know, busy night and whatever. So the whole customer is always right look and fake smile wasn't there, you know, so it ended up being like, okay, she was talking to this girl was not responding the way she's supposed to respond and whatever. And so conversation got elevated in terms of like voice pitch. People around start like looking and whatever. And so ended up placing the order for the drink and the food. And then the girl goes back in. And that for me it's just like, what is, you know?
On a first date is crazy. See, because I've been on first dates, and when you're on them, honestly, for me,
people on their best behavior.
I'm not even worried about the food.
Okay.
I'm literally trying to just talk and have this conversation. It's like you said, I'm just like, oh yeah, we'll be ready here in a little bit. And when we're ready, when you walk by, I'll get your attention. I'm not gonna go to the table you're waiting right now and be like, hey, we're ready now. I'll wait till you come back the next time.
Oh yeah, and she couldn't even get it. The what kind of wrapped it up, because we ordered the drink, but what wrapped it up for me was even after the waitress left, she just kept talking about the whole whatever. Oh, I'm gonna leave a review on Google and whatever. I'm gonna get her name, and it's like, this is a problematic person. Like, this is someone that
you're toxic. Toxic with just the waiter.
Yeah, right.
It's insane. That's crazy.
All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show today, man.
Thanks
I really
for having
appreciate
me.
the conversations that we've been having. Dang, hour and 15 minutes felt like nothing.
Wow,
really.
it's an hour already.
It just flew by.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I know it's Father's Day, so to all the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Even if you see this and it's not Father's Day, every day is Father's Day, you know, so happy Father's Day. I know I talked a lot about my dad. I think it's the Father's Day thing in the air and stuff, but thanks guys. I appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank you.
I really appreciate you, man, taking your time. You're such a genuine, humble person. I really appreciate that. Down to earth. Really do appreciate your time, man. Thank you.
Most definitely. Thanks for telling us about your dad, man. You know? No, for real. Because a lot of people, you know, most people don't have father figures in their lives they can look up to.
Yeah.
Or maybe some people are just, you know, are like, oh man, you know, okay. For example, we grew up where I grew up at. I mean, yes, we had some Nigerians there and they were pretty successful, you know, coming up. But to everybody else in the community, they were like, oh, they're kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's just, that whole idea of them not knowing. And I feel like we shed a lot of light on Nigerian culture today. And,
Yep, absolutely.
Here I'm thinking we're going to talk about wine and sales. And, on the special Father's Day episode releasing in July, we get to learn about the Nigerian culture and what it takes to be a strong, powerful Nigerian man who takes care of his family. So if anybody wants to be a good dad, watch this, watch it again, pick up the gems, learn how to be like Toks' dad. Dad Toks, I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your story with us, man. I really do appreciate it, man.
Thank you, my pleasure.
So, and Roger will plug in everything at the bottom, your links and everything like that too. So if they need to follow you, reach out to you, whatever it is.
Awesome.
Right
so if you got any master classes you want me to add at the bottom for wine sommelier, anything like that, let me know. Send me an email. We'll plug it all in the description, bro.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you on the next episode of Direct Discussions. Don't forget, #1 podcast in Texas. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you at the next episode. Peace.
Cut. This is my thumbnail.
This was awesome. Awesome.